Do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a proven roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. We walk you through the exact same process that we use to run franchise marketing campaigns for our clients at scale that has resulted in triple-digit growth. This blueprint isn't for anyone. It's not for people just starting a franchise. It's not for franchises without long-term goals. This is for franchises that want to scale up their marketing in a predictable and profitable way using a proven roadmap. If you want to sell more franchises, keep your current franchisees happy, and learn from people who have already done it, go to franchisegrowthblueprint.com and sign up today. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. Today, I have Kevin Dubois from Lapels Dry Cleaning. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jordan. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. It's great to have you on. So for our listeners who don't know you and Lapels, do you mind giving them a quick introduction?
Yeah, for sure. So Lapels Dry Cleaning is a franchise offering that was started in 1999. I was not the founder. That's usually question one for people. It was started by three gentlemen that were very much in the dry cleaning industry, one of whom had been in franchising in dry cleaning before. And those three guys owned what we call dry cleaning plants. So in other words, they had the equipment to clean clothes. And I think the initial version of the model was that they would bring people in from corporate America that didn't understand dry cleaning, and they would take care of the heavy lifting of the cleaning and put them in what we call satellite stores, just smaller 1,000-square-foot retail stores that would take in the clothes and send to them, the franchisor, to do the cleaning. And very quickly, those three consolidated to one person. The guy that had been in franchising before bought the other two out within the first couple of years. And as time grew on, I think the system got bigger. The geography that they were looking at got bigger, and that model got a little bit trickier when they didn't have the cleaning. My introduction to Lapels really came from, I grew up in the restaurant industry. I wound up buying a restaurant from that gentleman, Larry Friedman, who was the founder. He owned the real estate and that building. We got along really well together. I had been in franchising previously in the hotel and restaurant world, so had that franchising background. We got along really well, and I wound up buying half the company from him about 14 years ago, and then the other half about 7 years ago.
Wow, that's quite the journey. So what prompted you to buy in initially?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the business model is like polar opposite of what I had known in the restaurant world. And, what I mean by that is in the restaurant world, every Sunday we would sit and talk about what our specials were for the week and what we needed to order. And a lot of it was perishables and inventory and cost of goods. And at the end of the week, we'd say, geez, we didn't quite hit our cost of goods numbers because there was an open house on Tuesday. There was a football game on Thursday. It started snowing on Friday afternoon. And here we go. We'll try it again this week. And over time, that starts to wear on you, including nights and weekends and holidays and all of that. You really start to kind of become indentured to the restaurant business. So when I started to learn about the dry cleaning industry, it was the polar opposite, which is cost of goods was very low. There were no perishables. The good and the bad operators were all running about the same COGS. And it was a very simplistic business model. It wasn't nights and weekends and holidays. Certainly not an easy business, but much different than the restaurant business. And all the things that I didn't really like about the restaurant world didn't exist in the dry cleaning world. And so I was drawn to it, and I started, kind of kicking the tires on it and really looking at it saying, geez, the cost of goods can't be this low. There's got to be something missing. And the more I looked at it, the more I thought, geez, this is a great business model that not a lot of people know about. there aren't a lot of franchise opportunities within it. It's really easy to scale, and I think it would be a good offering out there in the franchise world.
Wow, very cool, very cool. And we don't have a lot of guests on the podcast that have actually taken over. A lot of them had, started, in fact, started them off from the ground up. So I'm curious as to when you first came into the system, as an owner, what was your experience like working with something that's already been established rather than something from the ground up?
Yeah, it was good and bad, I would say. There were definitely some pros and cons. The pro obviously was that we had a system of validation and a royalty stream coming in. I think when you start a franchise system, there's a lot of dollars going out and not a lot of dollars coming in. And so that first hurdle had sort of been tackled with a lot of elbow grease from the founders. And I don't know if the royalty stream at that point was supporting the system, but at least there was, some version of ramp up. Um, the biggest con was that, the three gentlemen really weren't franchisors. And so things like marketing funds and operations committees were not in place from day one, reporting financials. And so it almost became more difficult for me to show up and say, hey, we're going to need your financial report this month. Because it was like, well, nobody ever asked for it before. Why do you need it now? What are you going to do with it? And so, there were some pros and cons there.
Mhm. I'm curious. I really want to dive into that deeper. So it sounds like there was almost a cultural shift that needed to take place when you really came on board. So what was it like um, helping make that shift in mindset from both a franchisor perspective and for the franchisees?
Yeah, no, that's probably well put. I think that's what it was. It was almost like a new day, so to speak. For me, it was kind of fun and exciting because the system was still pretty small. We had about 20 units at that point. And so at 20 units, a lot of it was around our corporate office. I could get in my car and go out and have conversations face to face, and we could have lunch and dinners and talk about our families and really kind of get to know each other. And so it was really a lot of diving into the franchisees world and understanding it and kind of explaining where I had come from. I had come from some really strong franchise systems in the hotel world. I still maintain that hoteliers have a great franchise system. The reservation systems and the call centers and all the support that they offer, and the branding obviously is massive in hotels. So I kind of knew what the blueprint looked like and where we had to get, but it definitely was a cultural shift, and there was a lot of skepticism of why do you need this stuff and why are we doing this? But in the end, as we started implementing those big national ad buys, we started sharing good ideas across the system. People started seeing those benefits. And at the same time, having those things in place helped us to attract a stronger franchisee. That person that owned, multiple Golden Corrals and hotels and Great Clips and wanted to really scale a business. And that helped us to grow. It also helped us to bring in these great thoughts and ideas and minds into the system, which helped kind of take some of the burden off of me in terms of coming up with good ideas. I just had to hear a good idea and get it across the system.
I love that. I love making these cultural shifts. It's not just you as a franchisor saying we need to do this. It's a two-way conversation of hearing how other franchisees have seen in the past or done in the past, incorporating that into your own system. I'm sure that made the transition a lot easier as well.
Yeah, it sure did. I mean, it's fascinating how good ideas in franchise systems, regardless of what you're selling, tend to work in across multiple systems. So, you hear a good idea from a franchisee that is in the Great Club system, and you think, yeah, geez, that would work in our system, especially in the marketing world.
Mhm, mhm. So let's switch gears a bit and talk about growth. So,
you were at, I believe you said 20 locations when you initially kind of started out, and now you've grown quite substantially. Talk to me about some of the biggest learnings that you've had growing Lapels since then.
Yeah, no, good question. I mean, the system is different at 100 units versus 20, and there are things that I really miss about the 20 unit system, and some things that I really enjoy about the 100 unit system. Um, I do like operating. I do like the challenges of customer service and marketing and growing businesses and looking at P&L. So when the system was small, and we'd open a store, I would be the guy on a plane out there, putting the coming soon and now open banners in, and, helping to get the certificate of occupancy and racing around with general contractors. And I had a lot of fun in those days with all of that, as stressful as that piece of it can be.
Mhm.
I enjoyed that a lot. And today, my specific job is a little bit different. And we have some great, guys in operations that are now out there opening the stores or out in the field, with the ongoing consultation. And it was interesting as we started to grow, just the scaling aspect. And we had a period of time, probably about 6 years ago, where we started to grow at a much faster clip. I think for years when we first started, we would open 3 or 4 or 5 stores a year. And then we had a year 5 or 6 years ago where we opened 25 stores, and that was just a different world. And so, you very quickly need good people in different places that are, handling marketing and operations and franchise development and real estate and construction and overseeing the engineer and architect. So that was another great and exciting year, but much different than putting the grand opening banners in the ground.
Totally. So I'm curious, what was that? What was that catalyst that caused that 20 unit jump in that year? I'm curious.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things where we started to make some changes and started to implement them, but it took a little while for us to actually see that in terms of growth. But those changes were, when we started, we were building satellite stores only. We were not building the plants. And as a result of that, we didn't have a lot of multi-unit owners. And so fast forward, when I got involved, really for more just the control aspect of it, we wanted franchisees to be cleaning the clothes. And we really saw that as this hub and spokes business model where a franchisee would come into the system, they would build that first unit, the plant, we would have a retail component to that store. But once they had that plant, we built it to service up to 5 additional satellite stores. So then what was happening as sort of stage 2 of that is franchisee would come in and say, hey, it's 500,000 to open a plant. It's 80 to 100,000 to open a satellite. I'm going to do the 2 at one shot. I'll open the plant on, September 12th, and I'll open the satellite on September 19th, and really kind of maximize that scaling. And then in a lot of cases, they would open unit 3, 3 months later. So we had the multi-unit openings as a big part of it. And then once we had the plants, we were able to then franchise satellite stores within a demographic, outside of that plant to a different franchisee. And in some cases that worked as well. So it just kind of broadened our base for franchising. And it was at that point that we really started to see some scaling. And I would say, fast forward to today, 50% of our franchise owners are multi-unit owners, and probably a bigger percentage of that just intend to and just haven't opened a store to yet.
That is amazing. It sounds like you have a very, very sticky model. What do you have any tips for other franchisors for creating something that's sticky, where you're really essentially just capitalizing on the franchisees that you already have and helping them become multi-unit owners?
We'll get right back to the show, but do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. To find out more, visit franchisegrowthblueprint.com. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Now back to today's episode.
Yeah, well, I mean that hub and spokes business is for us is essential, and you've seen many businesses gravitate towards that model, whether it's Panera or Dunkin', where you have a unit that is doing some of the heavy lifting for the other units, and so more and more you're seeing that, and more I believe that that is a model, to aspire to. And you can do that model in lots of different business types where one unit is helping to support other units and helping to scale it. And that scaling is really key for, I think, lots of franchisors today.
Very cool. Very cool. So, Kevin, let's switch gears again. Let's talk little bit about marketing. So, how have you seen kind of your marketing change over the years? Right, like you mentioned, you started out 14 years ago, and a lot, especially from a digital aspect, has changed. So, I'd love to
Yeah.
hear more about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny you say that. So, when we started franchising, and very different from that food model where I really felt like we could franchise a bunch of stores in the Boston market, and then we could go open in Gilbert, Arizona, and we didn't have to worry about supply chain distribution. It existed throughout the country. And because we weren't, baking a bun for a burger that had these exact specs that we needed to start from scratch on, it made it very easy to build like that. But, from the marketing standpoint, it was very difficult to do that because, again, when I got here, I thought we really needed to leverage our buying power with advertising. But yet, when you had, 6 stores here and 6 stores in Myrtle Beach and 6 in Texas and 6 in Arizona, it wasn't like we could buy billboard advertising and make it work for everybody, or, newspaper advertising. So we really kind of hit our head against the wall trying to figure out how that would work. And then all of a sudden, this social media started. We were really becoming prominent, and you were able to geo-target with the social media. And it was like, this is the solution. This is how we do this. We can have every store owner spending the same capex. Let's say it's $5,000, and we can get them the exact same attention, penetration that these stores that are, a little bit more congruent here in Massachusetts are getting. And so that was like a real massive solution to a problem that we had that just kind of fell out of the sky. And so that has very much changed what our national advertising purchasing looks like.
Cool. Now I'm very curious about that. So, how has that changed your national advertising strategy?
Yeah, so nowadays, when we go to a company and, like, last year we basically say, hey, if everybody pooled their 2% in marketing, what would that spend translate to? And then we take that dollar amount and we shopped it out to advertising and marketing companies. And we said, hey, from a social perspective or marketing just in general, if we handed you, $500,000, what would you do with it? And our, group of franchise owners that consist of 5, franchisees across the country, they take in that data and they say, hey, here's what we would suggest. And we then help them implement it. But for last year, we basically geo-targeted the stores and ran, 100 unique campaigns. And each campaign was, hey, here are the retailers in our market that I think would be good customer base for us. Here are our competitors. And so as an example, if you walked into the Nordstroms in Scottsdale, Arizona, you would then get targeted with an ad that one of the, larger media companies, iHeartMedia, ran for us. And, on the flip side, if you walked into a store in Boston, you were a Tom James customer, as an example, we geo-targeted you and hit you with a digital ad. So it really gave us the ability to run almost like 100 very unique, precise to that one store campaigns at the same time, same bang for the buck. And that was, that's been a game changer for us.
I love that. I
And
love that hyper targeted approach to it, because that's personally with the other franchises that I've helped. It's very similar to what you're saying. The more localized that you can make a campaign, the more it resonates with the customers that you're targeting, with the franchisees that you're targeting. I absolutely love it.
yeah, and even more so probably for us as a dry cleaner, because there's so many dry cleaning options for customers out there that
Mhm.
it has to be super convenient for them. And so, a little bit different from like a Nordstrom's where maybe somebody will travel 12 miles to get there. Our customers typically coming from a mile or two away from the store. So we have to really kind of get precise on how we target that customer.
Totally. And you know what? You brought up a very interesting point about, it sounds like a very saturated market. It's very fragmented as well, right? Like you have a lot of mom and pop shops coming up that you're competing with. So, you mentioned one, convenience. I'm curious, how else do you differentiate yourself from this competition?
Yeah, convenience is probably the one thing that trumps everything. And convenience has changed over time. Many years ago, convenience was we would be next to the grocery store, and then it became we're next to the Starbucks, and then it became we're at your front door twice a week with our free home and office delivery.
Mhm.
And so we continue to push the envelope on what convenience is. We kind of feel like convenience being at your front door twice a week, whether you need us or not, is going to be the ultimate convenience, but then married with technology. So technology being the app, a lot of SEO that goes into targeting new customers. I think that is a lot of it. And then in addition to that, we started 20 years ago with being environmentally friendly, and what that's translated to today is the world's only 100% environmentally non-toxic cleaning process. We're a sustainable dry cleaner. We offer a hypoallergenic laundry process, and those things not only help us with the retail customer and their decision making, but even more so on we're the dry cleaner of choice for General Dynamics, Intel, Google, Harvard, Starwood Hotels. So really kind of helps with some of the larger companies that have really pushed sustainability and are looking to hit that box with everything that they do. So those are really kind of the keys. We've really tried to change the process of cleaning, whether it's solvents, detergents, or equipment that we use, and then marry that with technology and bringing convenience to them.
And you know what? That's a really great point on the convenience side and merging technology with it. Because especially, as we've grown up, I know for myself that everything now is a click or a tap away. So having that convenience translate into the real world of having your dry cleaning coming to you, twice a week, that's fantastic. I love how you've been able to translate, online to offline.
Yeah, thanks. And especially, as everything has sort of unfolded here with COVID, pickup and delivery has become key in getting right to consumers. Um, cleaning their household, doing wash, dry, and fold through our laundry program. That entire pivot in our business model was really essential with the pickup and delivery trucks that we have out there.
Mhm. Mhm. Very cool. So, Kevin, one question I like to always ask our guests is, what advice would you give someone just starting out as a franchisor?
Just starting out as a franchisor, yeah, absolutely. Well, from day one, it's having the essentials in place, reporting financials, digging into the unit financials, getting some sort of greater marketing theory in place where people are buying in and taking advantage of the system as it grows. Relationships with franchisor and franchisees is essential. And so I think, really kind of digging in and rolling up your sleeves with the franchisees is probably my biggest suggestion to people.
Very cool. And I'd love to hear a bit more. I know we've kind of touched on this throughout the conversation. Is what ways have you seen it most effective to really develop and flourish that relationship with franchisees?
Well, I think what's key is that the people in your corporate office have to really enjoy people. They have to be outgoing, optimistic. They have to know what they're doing, so that they don't lose, the faith of the franchisees. We have people in our corporate office that, I sort of deem as being addicted to pleasing people, and they'll pick up the phone and see how somebody's doing, especially nowadays. We're having daily phone calls with our franchise system as a result of everything that unfolded with COVID, with close to 100% participation. And so those things are key. Just getting out and about to stores. We have a couple of people that would typically be in our office that are out with store owners today, helping them. And so, I think it goes back to that sort of rolling up the sleeves and making the outbound phone calls and not waiting, for a franchisee to be in trouble before they call you, to really kind of be outgoing and get out in the trenches with them.
Mhm. That is great. I see that as being very proactive, and I'm sure your franchisees can see it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we're fortunate. We've got a great family of franchise owners, and we enjoy interacting with them.
Awesome. So, Kevin, the way I like to end all of our episodes is with something that I call the lightning round. Don't be afraid. It's just very light, easy questions. So, first one is, what is your favorite tool or app that you cannot live without?
Favorite tool is definitely the iPhone. I'm not sure about a specific app. Over these last few months, I've really embraced podcasts, ironically enough. So I'm using my podcast app a whole lot more than I ever was, listening to it on the car, on the ride in and out. And when I'm out and about traveling, I'm listening to them a bunch.
Awesome. Second question is, what is your favorite book?
Oh boy. Favorite book. Recently, again, along with the podcast, I've been reading a whole lot more. I'm not sure what number one is. I'm taking a bunch in. Bob Iger's book about his journey with Disney was awesome. I just finished that one. That's probably, I guess, my favorite today.
Cool. Next question is, who is the franchise leader that you look up to most?
Warren Buffett, easy one, always has been. Find good valued companies and stick with them. Don't fall into the short-term fads.
Cool. And last question is, where can people find out more about you and your franchise?
Well, let's see. On the franchising side, lapelsfranchise.com is our franchising website. On the retail page, it's mylapels.com. That's probably the easiest way to connect with us, or LinkedIn, obviously.
Awesome. Sounds good. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure. I appreciate you having me. Thanks, Jordan.
No problem.
Great.
Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And until then, happy marketing.